Welcome to ABC English Story. Today we're going to hear a tale about trust, betrayal, and the difficult path of revenge. It's a story that explores what happens when a dream is stolen, and how far someone might go to reclaim what was lost, even if the victory feels hollow. Listen closely to Elena's journey and consider the choices she makes. The Golden Spoon and the Broken Promise. Elena Petrova arrived in America with a suitcase full of hope and a grandmother's cookbook tied with string. She was from a small village in Eastern Europe, where the scent of baking bread was the smell of home. Her dream wasn't grand, just a small, honest restaurant where people could gather, eat good food, and feel welcome. She found a partner in her older cousin Vera, who had been in the States for years, seemingly established. Vera had a sharp mind for numbers. Elena had the soul of a chef. Together, they opened the Golden Spoon in a quiet corner of an old city neighborhood. For years, the Golden Spoon was Elena's life. She was there before dawn, kneading dough, chopping vegetables, her hands aching but her heart full. The restaurant grew, not fast but steadily. People loved Elena's borscht, her pierogi, the rich, comforting flavors that reminded them of their own grandmothers. Elena worked 7 days a week, sometimes sleeping on a cot in the back room. She poured every dollar she earned, every ounce of her energy, back into the place. She postponed thoughts of marriage, of children, of a life beyond the kitchen. The Golden Spoon was her life, her future, her everything. Then the whispers started. Suppliers called, asking about late payments. The bank sent stern letters. Vera, who managed the finances, always had an explanation. A temporary cash flow issue, a slow season, a misunderstanding. Elena trusted her. Vera was family. She was older, wiser, the one who seemed to understand the complexities of American business. But the problems grew. One day the landlord arrived with an eviction notice. The Golden Spoon was deep in debt. The bank was foreclosing. Elena stood in the empty dining room, the scent of old spices clinging to the air, and felt the world tilt. The Golden Spoon was gone. Not just closed, but lost, with its debts weighing heavily on Elena's name. Vera disappeared for a few weeks, then returned with a sympathetic smile. "The economy," she said, shrugging. "It hit us hard. We tried, Elena. But business is business." The neighbors, the loyal customers who had become like family, looked at Elena with pity, sometimes with judgment. They saw the headlines: local restaurant closes amidst debt, mismanagement. Vera had subtly shifted the blame, painted Elena as naive and reckless with money. Elena, heartbroken and ashamed, retreated into her small apartment. The betrayal was a physical pain, a knot in her chest. It wasn't just the restaurant. It was the trust, the years of sacrifice, the very idea of home she had built. She was lost, adrift in a strange city she now hated. Weeks turned into months, months into years. Elena lived in a fog of grief. She took cleaning jobs, worked late nights, saved every penny, but the emptiness remained. One evening, she walked past the old location of the Golden Spoon. A new sign hung there. Urban Eats, Modern American Cuisine. It was Vera's new venture, sleek and impersonal, serving generic salads and sandwiches. Vera herself was often there, smiling for customers, her success sharp and cold like a shard of ice in Elena's heart. Seeing Vera thrive on the ruins of her dream woke something in Elena. The despair began to harden into something else, a quiet, simmering anger. "Business is business," Vera had said. But this wasn't just business. It was a violation. Elena realized she couldn't just mourn. She needed to understand. She started small. Libraries, online courses. She learned about corporate structures, accounting, legal documents. She studied the small print of the old partnership agreements she had signed, trusting Vera completely. She learned about predatory lending, about shell corporations, about how quickly a small business could be gutted from the inside. The more she learned, the more the fog lifted, replaced by a cold clarity. Vera hadn't just mismanaged. She had systematically dismantled the Golden Spoon. She had taken out loans Elena didn't know about, shifted assets, and then, when the restaurant was failing, she had bought the property at a low price through a new company she controlled, quickly reopening it as Urban Eats. It was a calculated, ruthless move. Elena's anger didn't explode. It settled deep within her, becoming a steady, silent fire. She continued to work, to save, to learn. She observed Vera, watching her movements, her partnerships, her ambitions. Vera was now trying to expand Urban Eats into a small regional chain, seeking investors, talking about scalable models and market dominance. She wanted to be big. And Elena, understanding this, knew Vera's weaknesses: a hunger for prestige, a need for outside validation, and a deep fear of being exposed. Elena knew direct confrontation was useless. Vera was too practiced at denial, too skilled at twisting the truth. Elena needed to hit Vera where it hurt most: her carefully constructed reputation, her financial foundations. The revenge would be quiet, strategic, like seasoning a dish over many hours. Slow, deliberate, and ultimately unavoidable. Elena started by reconnecting with old suppliers from the Golden Spoon, not as a client, but as a friend. She'd share coffee, listen to their complaints about the new economy, and subtly, casually, ask about Vera's current dealings. She learned that Urban Eats, despite its modern facade, cut corners. It used cheap ingredients, exploited new, desperate immigrant workers with low pay, and sometimes even delayed payments, just like before. These were the small cracks in Vera's polished image. Then, Elena found her opening. Vera was pitching her expansion plan to a large, socially conscious investment firm. This firm prided itself on ethical investments and transparent business practices. Elena knew this was Vera's big chance. Elena didn't write a letter. She didn't call the firm directly. Instead, she meticulously compiled her research: the loan documents, the property transfers, the anonymous testimonies from former Urban Eats employees about unpaid wages and unsafe kitchen conditions. She even found a local blogger known for investigative food journalism, someone who genuinely cared about the city's culinary scene and its small businesses. One rainy afternoon, Elena walked into a small coffee shop where the blogger often worked. She ordered a plain black coffee and sat at a nearby table, her simple leather satchel beside her. She didn't speak. She just left the satchel on the chair when she left, accidentally unzipped, with a single, neatly organized folder inside. The folder contained everything: no name, no note, just facts. The blog post went viral. It wasn't a sensational attack, but a calm, factual expose. It detailed the predatory practices that led to the Golden Spoon's demise, linking them to Vera's current business model. It questioned the ethics of Urban Eats' rapid expansion, citing anonymous but consistent sources about labor practices and ingredient quality. It didn't accuse Vera directly of theft, but it laid bare the pattern of her financial manipulation and questionable ethics. The timing was perfect, just days before Vera's final presentation to the investment firm. The firm quietly withdrew its offer. Public opinion, once swayed by Vera's charming smile, began to turn. The community remembered Elena, the quiet, hardworking chef, and the abrupt, unexplained closure of the Golden Spoon. Urban Eats locations started to see fewer customers. Vera scrambled, issuing statements, trying to discredit the anonymous sources, but the damage was done. The truth, once hidden, was now out in the harsh light. Vera's empire, built on a foundation of sand, began to crumble. Urban Eats struggled, facing boycotts and accusations. The dream of a regional chain dissolved. Eventually, most of her locations closed, including the original one where the Golden Spoon once stood. Vera didn't go to jail. Her actions were just on the edge of what was legally provable for the average person. But her name was stained. She faded from the local business scene, her ambition crushed, her public image shattered. Elena, meanwhile, finally opened her new restaurant, a small, unpretentious place named The Hearth. No grand opening, just a quiet welcoming. Old customers, those who had once looked at her with pity, returned, bringing new faces. The food was still warm, comforting, honest. The Hearth thrived, not through flashy marketing, but through genuine connection and quality. But the victory tasted like ashes in Elena's mouth. She had won. She had exacted her revenge. Vera was ruined, just as Elena had been. Yet, it hadn't brought back the golden spoon, or the years she lost, or the innocence she shed. She was no longer the optimistic young woman who had arrived with a cookbook and a dream. The scars of betrayal ran deep. She still cooked with passion, but there was a coolness in her eyes now, a permanent guard that hadn't been there before. Sometimes late at night, after the last customer had left and the kitchen was clean, Elena would sit in the Hearth's quiet dining room. She would look at the empty chairs, the warm glow of the lights. She had found justice, yes, but the path had been lonely, paved with bitterness. The revenge had consumed her for a time, becoming her sole purpose. She wondered if the price of setting things right was sometimes too high, leaving an emptiness that even the warmth of her thriving restaurant couldn't fill. The question hung in the air, just like the gentle scent of spices. This story shows us that while injustice can be deeply painful, the path to revenge often comes with its own costs. Elena found a form of justice, but it changed her. As you continue your English learning journey, remember that stories often have many layers, and understanding a character's feelings can be as important as understanding their words.